Afternoon, folks. Be with you in a second. Just sort out Facebook. Okay. Afternoon, folks. As you can see, the other David is not with me today. I'm afraid he's having a bit of a rough time at the moment. But he's in good spirits. That's the main thing. Okay. So once again, this will be done in the style of Indie Truck Davies. But we'll give it a minute to let the numbers climb. We've got a lot to discuss today. A lot to discuss today. But as I say, we'll let the numbers climb. And then we'll go on to discussing the recent events. Okay. Anyway, who's all in? Let's have a look. We Wolfpack, Eddie, Gingers, how's America today, Gingers? Ali, how's France? Hi, Ice Ninja. Aki's. Hi, Mad Monk, thanks for moderating again today. Who else we get in? Martin, Stevie Bankier, Wee Bird, Margaret McEwen, Margaret Noakes. Any Facebookers in yet? Let's look. Alan Duncan's in for Facebook today. Hi, Alan. Who else we got? Got Francis McKenna, Paul, Tina, Elizabeth. How's Germany today, Elizabeth? Barbara, how are you? Right, we're up to our 100 mark, so let's get this broadcast underway, folks. So it's Indie Truck Davies, out the truck, not home, in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is overcast, but very warm at 18 degrees and dry at the moment. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look out your ain't bloody windy. Maybe drop a wee comment and see what the weather's like where you are. Okay. Right, let's move on. So, things have moved apace. John, sworn in as First Minister. Did they mess about? Straight to rebuilding his cabinet. Or putting together his cabinet. And what's the story? Well, John will have a smaller government than the last one, and his ministerial team will be supported by 14 ministers. And as I say, that reduces the size of the Scottish government. There's been a few changes to the team. The Minister of Independence, Jamie Hepburn, scrapped. So, full list of ministers. Minister for Parliamentary Business is now Jamie Hepburn. Minister for Business is Richard Lockhead. Minister for Employment and Investment, Tom Arthur. Minister for Public Finance, Ivan McKee. Minister for Children, Young People and the Promise, Natalie Dodd. Minister for Higher and Further Education and Minister for Veterans, Graham Day. Minister for Victims and Community Safety, Siobhan Brown. Minister for Climate Action, Gillian Martin. Minister for Agriculture and Connectivity, Jim Farley. Minister for Public Health and Women's Health, Jenny Minto. Minister for Social Care, Wellbeing and Sport, Marie Todd. Minister for Drug and Alcohol Policy, Christine McKelvey. Minister for Equalities, Cucumber Stewart. Minister for Housing, Paul McLennan. Right, now, who are in the cabinet? Well, the big announcement is Kate Ford's youngest ever Deputy First Minister, and she'll take on the economy portfolio and responsibility for Gaelic, so that's the first time we've got the Gaelic Minister, folks. Now, that'll go doing well in the party because it shows that John's trying to bring the factions back together because Kate's on the right of the party. But we'll get to the accusations that brings later. Shona Robertson remains in the Cabinet with responsibility for finance and local government. Angela Constantine remains Cabinet Secretary for Justice and Home Affairs. Mary McCallum remains in the Cabinet with responsibilities for net zero and energy portfolio. Fiona Hislop remains in the Cabinet as Secretary for Transport. Neil Gray keeps a health brief. Shirley Ann Somerville remains a Secretary for Social Justice. Angus Robertson remains a Cabinet Secretary for Constitution, External Affairs and Culture. And Mary Goujon remains Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Land Reform and the Islands. So, all pretty much safe hands. You know, but as I say, there is some controversy. Kate Forbes is made Deputy First Minister, and that's been squarely criticised by the Greens and is being hailed by Labour as the SNP moving to the right. Okay. Swinney denies that the SNP are moving to the right, and he states that the SNP shall remain a centre-left party. All right. Now, Minister for Independence all scrapped, leading to cries of the SNP have given up on independence. And Mr. Swinney says, Mr. Swinney counters that by saying all his ministers are responsible for providing the route map to independence. Funny that, I thought the conference had decided that. Anyway, Mr. Swinney says all cabinet ministers are responsible for delivering independence. This will be done through competent government and building consensus on independence. Fair enough. Now, Swinney's also penned an article in the National to tell us that there's no shortcuts to Indy, only a democratic pressure will prevail. Well, he's right on that bit. He is right on that bit. You know, on that bit, John's correct. But if he thinks that people will return the SNP to government repeatedly on the promise that they'll give this time its democracy, then John's sadly mistaken. He's wrong. You know, you've got to lay down a marker, and the party's just done that. Now, John goes on to state in his article in the National that a vote for the SNP as a vote for independence is still what's going to be in the manifesto. It doesn't matter if it's in the manifesto if you're not going to give it any meaning. Article 1, page 1, a vote for SNP is a vote for independence is meaningless unless it's got force behind it. That's why you've got to lay down a marker. The marker was supposed to be this election, majority SNP MPs, and the next Scottish election will be a plebiscite election. Now, what John says in this letter is that every democratic event will be a vote for independence and that democracy will prevail. It won't if you don't lay down a marker. If you keep doing the same thing time and time again and accept being told no, then that's exactly what's going to continue to happen. If you do not lay down a marker and say enough is enough, then democratic pressure is not there. It just is not there. When you seek to be told no all the time, it becomes the norm. And then when you ask a question, it becomes like a joke. there comes a point where you've got to put down a marker. That's what was debated in the SNP conference last year. That's what was decided was the route forward. If John wants to change that, he better get his arse into conference and convince enough people that we should lift that marker and accept being told no time and time again. Democracy only has pressure if the democratic rights are upheld. Now, John is right in his article when he says the party has to abide by the law. But the Supreme Court told them the out. Yes, Westminster controls whether you get a Section 30 order or not. Westminster does not control the ballot box. There is power at the ballot box, but there's only power at the ballot box if you lay down a marker. I've said this before, and I've said it repeatedly because I know history. Every movement has its moment. This movement's moment is passing if John lifts that marker. In 30 years' time, it'll be an alpha party and an evolved administration going through the same shit. Because that's where we'll be. If John wants to take that marker away, he better come to the party and convince us it's the right thing to do, because I don't think it is. We're also hearing that some in the SNP may want to delay asking the question again until we have a consistent 60% in the polls. Now, if we take Believe in Scotland's polls, it's at 56%. If you take the average poll, it's within the margin of error at 50-50 either way. That means in a decade, we'll put on 5% support. If the polls have to constantly show 60% support, we're looking at 2 more decades if we're only putting on 5% support a decade. And I was talking to Seamus Logan yesterday, who is running for the candidate, as the Westminster candidate for SNP in Aberdeenshire North and Moray East. Smashing fella. If you're up there, vote for him. Get the Tories out. It's a straight fight between the SNP and Tory up there. He was pointing out there's a tipping point. Well, if Believe in Scotland's got is constantly between 54 and 56%, where's the tipping point? When does it start to rush? We know that Believe in Scotland's polling methods are up to date, and they're using modern demographics, which is counting the 16 and 17-year-olds in. That still only got us to 56. So we're talking about another decade. I don't think the SNP are getting this. This movement's coming to its peak. Something has to give. And if we have to give up the defined route map that we'll put in place, then it's up in the air. Ipsos Mori 10-year tracker has a yes at 54%. So it's one above the margin of error. Basically, it could be 51 if we take in the margin of error. Now, Westminster's at its weakest, the weakest it's ever been. It's at this point the SNP should be hammering home the point to the people of Scotland. It's no hard to point out the ineptitude of both parties doing that road. It isn't. Pick any year in the last 30 years, you can pick out a disaster for Bathroom. And the economic decline under Bathroom. Dropping living standards. Failing public services. John did say in his letter that independence is more important than ever because of the failing UK economic model. So quite a bit of a mixed message in his thing. Saying that we're going to go with page one, a vote for the SNP is a vote for independence. Very good. Great. What are you going to do with that manifesto once you win? What are you going to do with it, John? Are you going to carry on with the assert that the 2026 election will be a de facto referendum? A de facto referendum, sorry, a plebiscite election. This is what we need to hear, folks. We need to hear. Because if John wants to change things, he's going to have to ask us at conference to change things. And I ain't doing that. I'll vote him down. And I'll work bloody hard to make sure everybody else votes him down. They watered down the proposal last year. There's no watering it down again this year. Every movement has its moment. This one's had a few and missed them. They aren't going to keep coming alive. A change in direction now is not the right thing to do. Right, Swinney holds his first FMQs. Normally I try and avoid the Punch and Judy shows, but here we go. John holds first FMQs, and he took a bashing over his record as Education Secretary. After we dross, Swinney back to being the meek man of politics and try to play consensual politics. Tries to explain to we dross that things have changed since 2021. With rampant inflation, right in the middle of pay negotiations, taking a whack out of the public purse forevermore. You know. So we dross get schooled on economics by John. But he is trying to be more conciliatory. That's a fucking mistake. When you get three adversaries and somebody who's not on your side anymore, or could be not on your side anymore. John's in a very weak position here. So he is. As according to the Greens, independence is no longer a red line for them. They could work with unionist parties in the whole of Parliament, apparently. John's government is subject to the whim of other people, but to show weakness at this point in time. Because these guys are only there to play consensus politics. They're there to run down the SNP, its administration, and any chance that it could be shown to be competent to the Scottish people. Because competent governments in Holyrood, as opposed to what the fuck's going on down that road in Westminster, could well be the edge that John's talking about to get them through the independence line. You know. And then we had Sarwar. He tried the same stunt. Then he pulled up at Glasgow City Council's laying off 147 teachers next year. John didn't let Sarwar away with it, but he spanked Sarwar on the Glasgow City Council thing. He reminds us all that Glasgow City Council ended up with a £500 million bill to pay women equal pay claims, equal pay that was denied to them over a decade by Labour. Labour took the women working in Glasgow City Council to court to try and prevent having to pay them what they were due. So Poverty Pie gets slapped. He gets slapped as usual. Poverty Pie then tells us the Scottish people need new leadership, to which John starts laughing along with the rest of the party and he says, good news, Anas, I'm here, and I'll be here to win the 2026 election too. Question is, will that election be a plebiscite election, John? Because that's the question we all want answered. And it is a question I will be asking. Next up, we Patrick, he got a say this week. Here they go to the SNP, who are appointing Kate Forbes. Pointed out our views on transgender people, our views on equal marriage, our views on abortion, all being way out of sync with the people. And John just made it clear and said, look, Kate's a good politician, a good administrator, and her personal thoughts on these issues got nothing to do with policy. She might not like the issue, they might not like the policy, but hey ho, it's not democracy. There's a lot of policies I don't like. There he goes. You know, as I say, we are at a very, very important crossroads, and where this movement goes, and if this movement breaks up or not. John's got a lot of questions to answer. No doubt he'll be asked them. But what I can assure you people is that if he wants to change the roadmap that we've laid out, where the 2026 election is a plebiscite election, de facto referendum, call it what you want. If we win the majority of MPs, because they've all signed on to a Section 30 order, if he wants to change that, he's going to have to bring it before the floor of the conference. And I'll be campaigning hard to bring it down. To say every movement has its moment. Every movement has its moment. This movement's moment, there have been a few, but this is the last one in this movement. If we don't get the majority of MPs and move on to that plebiscite, a Scottish general election, and call it for there, if we don't move on for this general election with majority of MPs to a plebiscite election in 2026, this movement's finished. It's a case of back to square one and build again. So I hope John is listening, because John's got questions to answer, and he will have to answer them on the floor of conference. And if he's thinking about changing the route map that was laid out at conference last year on the way forward to independence, then John's going to have to come to conference and convince the party. And I don't see John being able to do that. I don't. I can understand why he's trying to play nicey in the Parliament. Minority governments are always in a dangerous place. It only takes a call of no confidence to get the support of all other parties. And you have a general election. Or they get in a coalition and select a First Minister. So as I say, I'm not going to bullshit you folks. I'm not going to bullshit you. I called it right when I spoke about cracks in the movement. And I'm telling you right now, I'm calling it right now. If John changes the plan on the route forward, then we're looking at another 3 or 4 decades, kids. I won't be around to see it. But he was also talking about he'll be bringing forward policies. I've got another news flash for John. No, he fucking won't. John's job is to implement the manifesto he was elected on in 2021. And where cuts have meant that some of that manifesto can't be fulfilled, that's generally how these things work. You're honest with the public and you adjust your plans. You do not introduce policy on the hoof, Mr. Swinney. That's not how our democratic system works. We didn't vote for a leader of a party, we voted for a party on a manifesto. That manifesto is to be enacted out of a 5-year parliamentary term. That's how it works, Mr. Swinney. So get on with implementing that manifesto. Get on with being a decent administrator. Show the people of Scotland that you can govern. And stick to pledges made at conferences. Or go to the conference and ask for the people in the party to change approach. You're not doing it. And we're certainly not giving up our democratic method of elections because we got to change a party leader. I didn't vote for a party leader. I voted for a manifesto to be implemented to the best of their abilities over a 5-year period. Whenever we vote for a political party, we understand that they're probably not going to be able to fulfil the majority of all of their manifesto. But we do expect them to get the big ticket things in place, and they have. They're rolling out free school meals, they've upped the child uplift, another big one. Rolling out free extended nursery care. So they are implementing the manifesto. That's what I want to continue. Take policy on the hoof. So, if John's got any big ideas on changing direction, on anything, you better go to the people with a fresh manifesto. And on the route to independence, if he wants to change that, you better come to the conference and ask for our fucking permission. Simple as that. As I say, I'm a Democrat. Always have been. But I believe in the structures and the democracy within the party. We put together a manifesto in 2021. We put it before the people elected us. We implement that manifesto no matter who the leader is. Last year at conference, we decided the route forward to independence. John wants to change it. Conference is the place. He needs to convince the members to change tack. Good luck with that, John. Good luck with that. Right, let's move on down that road, shall we? It's an important time in the movement, folks. And it will take pressure from people within the SNP to keep John on the right track. It will take pressure from the wider movement to keep John on track. I intend to ensure that he stays on track. Right, down that road, bad day for Sunak and for Starmer. His right-wing Tory nut job defects to the Labour Party. Now, this is Natalie Elphick, MP for Dover, and she's crossed the floor to join Starmer's Labour Party, claiming Sunak and the Tories are not right-wing enough, haven't done enough in small votes. Not good enough. Also, not a great day for Starmer. So, not a good day for Sunak. One of his MPs walks the floor. But in this case, it's also not a great day for Starmer. It really isn't. I mean, his party doesn't understand why he let her in. BBC Scotland, lunchtime today, one of the Labour Party executives, one of them was on, talking to BBC Scotland. Can't remember the name of the fella, unfortunately. And he's flabbergasted. He has no idea why this woman's been let in. She's a right-wing loony. And he tells BBC Scotland, it appears that Starmer doesn't give a fuck about what the activists in Scotland think, because he's been getting calls for them. Appalled at what's happened here. But that's not the only place they're getting called. This activist also goes on to remind them on the BBC that the Indie movement and the SNP called the Labour Party up here the Red Tories. He says this gives credence to their claim that they're Red Tories when they're accepting extreme far-right Tories into the Labour Party. As I say, he then goes on to remind the BBC that Labour only returned one MP fee in Scotland in the last election. He says it looks like Starmer's trying to do the same. But as we all know, Starmer doesn't need Scotland. That's why Sarwar's getting slapped silly. Everything Sarwar's said to the people of Scotland so far, Starmer slapped him down. Sarwar will get rid of the two-child cap and the rape clause. Starmer, we're keeping the two-child cap and the rape clause. Sarwar, Israel must stop the genocide in Gaza. Starmer, we're going to keep supplying weapons to Israel, and Israel has the right to defend itself, even to the point of wiping out every single person in Gaza. New Deal for Workers hails ANAS, Poverty Pie. Imagine Poverty Pie screaming about workers' rights. New Deal for Workers screams Poverty Pie. Starmer on International Workers' Day. We'll just water that down and do what the bosses want, won't we? Couldn't make it up, man. So not a good day for Starmer, but it does confirm Labour's move to the right when you've got an extreme right-wing nutter who got elected after her husband had to stand down because he was getting sent to jail for sex crimes. So her husband, who was the MP for Dover, goes to jail, she stands in the stead and gets elected. Have the people of Dover flipped their bloody lids? She then goes on to have a pop at the victims. There's an inquiry going into that. But it's not just here in Scotland, Labour activists are not happy. They're not happy in England either. Apparently the party whips are getting bombarded. Diane Abbott's still suspended for the Labour Party and they're taking in right-wing nutters. The birds in the left. And in comes the right. And what makes it worse is the whips have warned Starmer. This opens the door for a weaning him to walk out and expect to be able to sit, stand in the seats for Labour, and end up right back in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, but with a different rosette on. Now, if there isn't any bigger symbolism than two cheeks of the same arse, there's a warning for your own whips that you could be becoming one cheek, no two cheeks, one cheek of a dysfunctional arse. Wow. And of course, the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers didn't cover itself in glory yesterday either, did it? When it came to the debate on selling weapons to Israel. Oofed. Disgusting. We only sell them a wee drop, but we're going to keep selling them. The MOD refusing to tell us why Israel's landing planes here, in case ministers become complicit in war crimes. Eh? And now we've got the Tories telling us that the UK's policy, backed by Labour, by the way, as was pointed out by George Galloway, the SNP, the Lib Dems. But we'd won after another storm up about Israel's right to defend herself. Israel's right to defend herself. I guess they forgot that Israel's the one that's holding that's actually conducting the siege. And has been occupying Palestine for 70 odd years. A right to defend yourself and occupy. When did the rules change? Did somebody change international law when I was fucking looking? Anyway, one after another who something defends Israel. One after another. Great speeches for the SNP pointing out the horrors and demanding that arms sales stop. George Galloway points out there's 600,000 child hostages about to be slaughtered in Rafah right now. Who cares? The blood was flowing all over the floor of the chamber, right out to the lectern, the dispatch box on the government side, right out to the lectern, the dispatch box on the opposition side. Only the SNP benches and a few independent benches that were clean. Everyone else was painted red. You think it was a fucking House of Lords? So according to Labour and Tory, it's alright for BB to go and fucking butcher another 600,000 kids. Talk about fucking hostages. You want to talk about hostages? What about the tens of thousands of fucking Palestinians being held uncharged in Israeli jails? Is that no hostages? What about the 600,000, 1.5 million hostages being surrounded and slaughtered, starved, and disease-ridden in Rafah? Are these people no fucking hostages? What about the people of Gaza and the West Bank who can't even travel freely? Are these people no fucking hostages? But to think we're tied up in the union with that lot. Bibi Netanyahu's about to slaughter 600,000 children with his man-made famine, using starvation as a weapon of fucking war against a civilian population, and we're going to keep selling them weapons. To date, you could not make it up. You really couldn't. Unfucking believable. And the atrocities that happened on October 7th. We'll never know the truth of that, because Israel won't let anybody investigate. It's beginning to look like a lot of the people that died on October 7th died at the hands of the Israelis. And that's for the Israeli hostages. Netanyahu doesn't give a fuck about them. If he did, he wouldn't be bombing a place. He doesn't know where they are. Indiscriminate bombing's going to kill him. Netanyahu's probably killed more of the hostages than Hamas did. Catherine, you're on a naughty step. Not good. You know. So, neither Labour nor the Tories covered themselves in glory yesterday, but what they did do was continue to smear all our hands with the blood of innocent children. I mean that. Unbloody believable. I watched it in horror. As they stood up at the dispatch boat time after time after time and defended what Israel was doing and defended continuing sales of arms to Israel. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But you got to remember, that's that place that supported apartheid in South Africa for long and weary. It was public opinion that changed their position then, but it would appear it's getting harder to change their position, because public opinion here is about 72% want the government to demand that Israel cease the slaughter in Gaza. As I say, it was bloody terrible. It was horrendous to watch. Right, let's move on. When we talk about the plight of the Palestinians, well, as you know, the Tories and the right wing have been having a right crack at people protesting the genocide in Gaza, and they've been calling them pro-Palestine protesters rather than peace protesters. They've been trying to weaponise these things as being anti-Semitic, when we know that there's hundreds of thousands of Jews on these protests worldwide. Well, with millions of them actually on these protests worldwide. Right, but Sunak takes his war on protests to the universities, and he calls in the UK university heads. So he does. To have a wee chat with them about what he calls pro-Palestinian protests in university campuses. He's claiming that there's a rise in anti-Semitic incidents being reported at the university, to the universities. Right. Anyway, at the end here, after the heads of the universities were dismissed by the Education Secretary and by Mr. Sunak, out they trotted, and the head of the Association of Universities, Keegan, her name is. Anyway, she's asked about the meeting. She tells everybody, it was dead constructive. But legitimate protest is a legitimate means of expressing your points of view. We will monitor anti-Semitic incidents at universities, but we are not going to put a stop to the protests. So Sunak got nothing out of that. But as I was saying with Seamus yesterday, I mean, back in the 70s, Glasgow especially was protest was quite an ordinary thing, and the universities were hotbeds of politics, you know. I wouldn't imagine that changed too much. But unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. But, you know, there is a serious point to this. There will have been an uptick in anti-Semitic incidents because of the Israeli state's actions in Palestine. There will be. It's incorrect. It's not right. It's just not on. The Jewish people are responsible for the actions of the Israeli government, especially those who don't live in Israel. But as we know since Brexit, race crimes up, race hate crimes up, religious groups hate crimes is up, and a lot of that has to do with Brexit. The tick up in anti-Semitism, yep, I would not be surprised if it was linked to Gaza. But any right-minded people will know that the Jewish people, especially those who live outside Israel, are not responsible for what the Israeli state is doing in Gaza. And as we know, in protests all over the place, there are strong Jewish contingents at these protests. So keep the heat, folks. It's peace protests We would be protesting if it was the Israeli people who were being slaughtered by the Palestinians, as we were rightly shocked on October the 7th. But we'll be even more shocked at Israel's response, that's for sure. Right, let's move on. Right, and it looks like Biden's starting to wobble. You know, as the UK Parliament votes to keep supplying weapons to Israel, Biden has hardened his stance, and he's told Netanyahu if he goes into Rafah, Joe will end supplies of arms to Israel to use in the offensive. He was very clever, he was very careful with his words. He's warned them, stay out of these populated areas, or we're going to stop shipping arms to you, with the exception of for their Iron Shield. Now, I think this comes in the light of the fact that the ICC are seriously considering, and are probably only a few days away from issuing arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his ministers. Now, Biden did threaten the ICC. The ICC wasn't playing. And of course, we'll get the backlash against Biden's continued support of Israel and America itself. So Biden's basically walking a tightrope here. But he's warned Netanyahu to stay out of Rafah or the arms dry up for that particular campaign. This is the second time now that America has sanctioned Israel recently. They've also ceased funding the Israeli army unit, which runs the West Bank. So it would appear that Joe has finally got it. I think he's beginning to realise why they're calling him Genocide Joe. I think the light bulbs went on in that senile old heat, and he's realised, fuck, there is a genocide going on here. And it's about to come to its ultimate end, with everybody in Gaza being wiped out. So Biden has warned Netanyahu to stay out of Rafah. Netanyahu has told Biden to get to fuck. That's what's happened. You know, Biden's losing a lot of support. Heaven forbid we get Trump in again. If we do, apparently Labour are preparing to deal with him. As David Lammy tells us, that Trump's misunderstood on NATO. No, he's not. Trump is an isolationist. He'd ditch NATO in a minute. Huh? And then Putin would be free to run riot anywhere, everywhere. But, as I say, Biden's losing support earlier to his stance on Israel, so he's starting to shift. I think he's a bit worried and all with the ICC, the International Criminal Court, going to issue arrest warrants. Because at that point, we're going to have to say, folks, we're going to have to stop supplying arms to these people anyway. So maybe Joe's just getting in before the complicity in genocide starts getting fired around by the International Criminal Court. Right, let's end on some good news for the people of England, shall we? As we're coming to an end, folks. Ending some good news for the people of England. All right. Ex-Chancellor, ex-Tory Party Chairman, tax dodger, and one of the architects of the 2008 banking crash, Nadim Salawi, is to stand down at the next election after 14 years of stealing from the public purse. Don't know how much he managed to steal in the end. What we do know is he did manage to steal 22 million by coming to a deal with HM Treasury, some rumoured while he was Chancellor, to pay $3 million on a $25 million tax bill. So at the very least, we do know that Nadim Sawawi, as well as orchestrating the banking crash, or helped to orchestrate the bank crash, has also stole 22 million quid for a public purse. And God knows how much more during the pandemic. So, I thought I would end a bit of good news. Another rat who'd never had the public interest at heart is leaving the public service, a service he was never in anyway. He was only there to meet his own needs. The folks, that's what I've got for you today. Oh, that was excellent. An excellent wee interview yesterday with Seamus up in Aberdeenshire. Seamus doesn't intend to be a career politician. He says he wants it done now. Yes, class action. Sawawi should have been in jail over the Royal Bank of Scotland's scandal, but as you and I know, Fred the Shred took it. There you go. You get the blame for it. Right, folks. I am going to make a slight appeal to you. As you know, the super chat button's not there anymore. David's no fit to remonetise the channel at the time being. Food bank funds get a wee bit low. If you can afford it, folks, the bank details there to stick some money into. If you can. I know the super chat being after bloody inconvenience, but until David's back on his feet a wee bit, then we only have the one means of helping people. So if you can help us to help others, that would be very, very much appreciated. Because we've got a couple of things going out this month, and that'll be an end to it. We've got the money going to Fraserburgh, and there's money going to Glasgow as well. So, I hope you've enjoyed the show, folks. I know the first part of it was very, very serious. We are at a crossroads here. The direction the SNP turns in here will decide what happens with this movement. I intend to have my say in this. I intend to ensure that John doesn't try and blindside the party members. If he wants to change the roadmap that we have laid out, and after last year's conference, then he's going to have to come before the conference again and present a different picture. But you better be bloody good, because I'm not changing my mind. You've got to put down a marker and tell them down that road, this far and no further. We did that last year at conference. It rattled them bad. What we need to hear from John now is that he's sticking to the plan. Alright? A bit like Rishi Sunak sticking to a plan that doesn't exist, but at least we have a plan. We need to stick to it. Right, folks, that's what I've got for you today. Of course, I'll be back on Monday, and if anything comes up that I think I need to speak on, then I'll just pop out and do a short okay. I would hope the party members are behind me with it. If John wants to change the roadmap, you better come to conference and explain to us, because we've already made the decision on the route forward. And that marker in the sand is the amount of MPs we sent to Westminster. If we send the majority, then the 2026 election becomes a de facto referendum, a plebiscite election. That's already agreed. If John wants to change that, he's going to have some job changing my mind. I don't know what you feel, but you better keep his eyes on the prize. That's it for the day. Look after yourselves and say if you can help a wee bit with the food bank fund, please do. Now, also please like, subscribe, okay? Like and subscribe and share across your social media platforms, because although it was done in the style of the Truck Davy, it is still a 2D broadcast. Alright, have a nice day, and we'll catch you all later. Bye for now.